Hello, my name is Denison-Pender and I'm the Managing Director of MAhout UK Limited. I've been asked to speak to you today a little bit about my love for and my work for and my association with India. This goes back over 35, 38 years now, and it's been my passion and ambition to put India on the map and promote all things Indian. I first went to India in the early 80s on my year off. I was supposedly going around the world. But I got to India and realised very quickly I was never going to leave. I got in a taxi from the airport and the door fell off and I ended up at the Imperial Hotel, which in those days was one of the sort of shabby chic, not much better than a hostel, but it still had an image and a wonderful location. I then started travelling and very quickly I realised that I felt my shoulders drop, I felt I could breathe again, I felt at peace, I felt I'd come home. And I travelled around India for a few years, working in garden centres, working in accountancy firms, working in Calcutta, and working whenever my money ran out in order to stay in India, which I was fast falling in love with. After a little while of working out there and travelling, I realised maybe I ought to go home and see people. I'd cancelled my university place and the time had come to maybe go home and see if I could make a life in England. I did that and very quickly realised I couldn't be happy in England and I needed to get back east. So I went back east and went over to Pakistan, and I was working there for some time on the border during the war. And I went up into the high Himalaya and hung around in Skardu before going back over to India. In those days, Kashmir was open and free and beautiful. You could water ski on the lakes. It was stunning. And it was during that time that I made some of my most lasting friendships that are still important to me today. I met the most incredible people, and I believe that traveling on your own, you open yourself up to being approached and being talked to, and people let you in and look after you. And it was during that time I really did find out more about India and Indians than I ever thought I could or would. The food appeals to me, the colour, the sense of family, the constant trying to help. Sometimes doesn't help, but it's the effort that's made. There's something so genuine and warm and giving about Indians, and their faith also resonated very, very deeply with me. So whilst in India at this point, I was thinking what to do, and I carried on travelling, went over to Southeast Asia, Burma, Thailand, all through Indonesia, took a boat over to Australia, worked in Australia, eventually came home another year or two later, at which point I realised I really needed to start working. And I started working for a company called Cox & Kings. I was with them for about 9 years in their London, Delhi and Bombay offices. And after that phase ended, I realised I wanted to do something on my own, and I teamed up with a business partner and we started what turned out to be the most fabulous little company called Western and Oriental, known as W&O. And we had the most amazing team of people, from ticketing people to salespeople, and we just took off. We started with an India product because I knew I could put that together pretty quickly. And as that grew, we developed into a more global product, but always seeking out the best, the most beautiful, the most rare, the most unique, the most interesting places. And we quickly got a name for doing what we did incredibly well. And the company thrived until September the 11th, when everything really started to go a little bit pear-shaped. Very quickly we saw business hemorrhaging, and there wasn't much we could really do to stop it. We had to sit and wait and see if travel would come back. At which point I realised after 8 years running Western and Oriental, it was possibly time for me to move on and do something a little different. I'd been tour operating for 18 years by then, and much as I love arranging holidays for clients and still get a huge buzz out of it, I'd realised that there was so much in India that needed helping and promoting. In particular, these small, privately run little hotels. And the owners of most of them have started from nothing. They literally had a pile of ruins and didn't know what to do with them. So I saw my role at that point as trying to help them create something very special that guests could come to. There were very few in India at the time, and they were seriously basic. So I set about trying to support them, advise them, guide them. I almost became like an interior designer to them, because many of the owners would not really have travelled that widely. They didn't understand the need for a bedside light each, and 2 luggage racks, and good linen, good pillows, good food, good wine to entice the middle and upper markets out to them. At the same time, I have such huge respect for all the owners, because many of them have put their life savings, their time, their energy, their passion, their money, everything into restoring their old family homes or creating something new out of nothing. And it would have been so easy for these owners to just bulldoze their ancestral homes and sell it off and take the money and end up with some tower block there instead. But they wanted to preserve and restore and create, and that's where I just have such huge respect and admiration for the pain and effort that they went through to create the gems that many of these hotels are. So having done this for a little while, it was the start of the Heritage Hotels Association in India, of which I was on the board of for a short while, and these small hotels were cropping up all over Gujarat and Rajasthan in particular. Some of them were slightly better than others, some of them were simpler. Each of them has the most amazing location or view or historical content or architectural content, but all of them has something that needed to be shouted about. So when I left Western Oriental, having started promoting these places to my clients, I realised I needed to take it further, and equally I needed a new look and phase and path in life. So I started MAhout, and the sole aim of MAhout really was to help these small privately owned hotels. Some of them are now part of a little tiny group of 3 or 4. Most of them are very small, some with 3 rooms, some with possibly 40 maximum. But they had no means to have a face and a voice in the UK. The bigger hotel chains that were thriving by then, the Taj and the Oberoi, they had funds behind them. They could afford overseas PR and marketing and sales. These smaller hotels couldn't. So my focus became to try and find a way to help them get exposure in the Western market. And basically by creating a price that was affordable for them but viable for me, I could set up an office on their behalf. They could then say they had an overseas office. It gave them immediate credence, and it would mean that the public trusted them because they had an overseas voice and a face. The press and the public and the trade can all ring me for any information they want about these hotels. And my focus now and role I see for India is to just keep pushing away and making sure that the world understands these hotels. They're quite beautiful, they're unique, they're spread all over India. No one compares with the other because they're all privately owned. Some of them look to each other for advice and help, but most of them do it their way. Sometimes they get it a little bit wrong, but then they put it right immediately. Some of them are down on the beaches, small little places on secluded beaches, some outstanding walks up in the Himalayas where you walk from lodge to lodge, staying in wonderful comfort with your own chef and cook, with guides that are beautifully trained and affable and huge knowledge. Others are just extraordinary restored palaces, stately homes, garden havelis, and others are more urban, extraordinary little small eyries at the top of office blocks or converted hotels in the south. They're all over India. They're in tea estates, they're in the Himalayas. And the joy of MAhout is that anyone travelling to a MAhout hotel will know that I've seen it. I try and visit them all once a year, not only to keep in touch with my friends. Most of the owners have become dear friends of mine. And indeed, 1 or 2 of the hotels now I'm working with the 3rd generation. The hotel started with Grandpa, and then the son took over, and I worked closely with him to really take it forward. And now his son is managing it and doing a fantastic job. And it's this sort of story which I love, when you see it going through the generations with equal passion and equal determination to make something special. And in that respect, I go and see them every year because they do change. They need help, they need advice, they need contact. They want to see you, they want to speak to you, they want to hear about business and plans in the future, because not all of them can travel, not all the owners can travel abroad every year. So as part of MAhout, they have a lot of my time, but equally by being on my website, I think it gives them a mark of respect. It would fast track them to business in the Western world that they wouldn't otherwise have. In fact, many of them might not even be found if they weren't being promoted and featured by MAhout, because some of these little places, you don't know what you're looking for. They're in the depths of the countryside, in villages you would never have heard of. You wouldn't know to even Google that village. But by seeing it on the MAhout website, you have instant access to it. You can look at it. Most of the pictures are taken by myself. If not, they're carefully vetted by me for their reality. And as I said, I see them all once a year. I know exactly what standard they are. And with the advice I give them, they're just going on to ever greater things. And that is really the whole raison behind MAhout and what we do. It's something I will always strive to, is work with India. I've done quite a lot of work with the Indian government on their tourist departments. Once we had a crazy trip driving through Chhattisgarh, trying to develop that and how we can create basic infrastructure to get backpackers to come and open it up as another state for tourism. It was fabulous, and sadly now it's not as accessible as it was due to some trouble. But it's always about all things Indian for me. It's not, the hotels come first, obviously, but above all, it's India. People should go to India. There's no other country like it. It's good for the soul. It's very feminine. It's very romantic. It makes you feel at peace. It can be frustrating, but you know in the end it will always work out, because there's always someone there to help who wants to make it right for you. It's a country where if you visit, some people describe it as being like Marmite. You love it, but then say, well, maybe never again. Other people go back and back. I've had some clients now who've done 35 trips to India. They go to the same hotel every year for a week and then somewhere different afterwards. And that's the joy of India. It's the diversity. You can go anywhere, you can do anything, you can change your trip every year. And I think for me, it's getting people to go to India, because once they go, they'll understand it, they'll fall in love with it. And I defy anyone not to have some passion or some reaction to India, which will usually always be hugely positive, as it was with me, and as it always will be. Thank you very much.